Hello, my wonderful viewers. The war in Ukraine and things I have learned and things I have noticed about the war between Russia and Ukraine. First lesson that I have learned from this war is never go into any serious conflict or any serious war with borrowed weapons. That is the first thing I have learned. If you know you don't have your own weapons, don't go into any serious war or conflict relying on your allies, thinking that they will support you to the end. Now Ukraine is found wanting. Zelensky, whom I believe still thinks he is on the stage performing comedy, so much deluded to the extent that the whole nation is under attack. And this guy still is calling the West to bring him more weapons. As a matter of fact, it is either he is so deluded, or it is either he's so, excuse my word, but it is either he's so deluded or so stupid. As a matter of fact, any reasonable person knows that the weapons sent by NATO and the weapons sent by America, they were so hyped. In fact, those weapons were glorified in such a way that people thought Russia would lose this war. We were told that these weapons are so sophisticated to the extent that Russia will not be able to destroy those weapons. But most of the weapons were destroyed as soon as, less than a week, when they get into the battlefield, they were destroyed. Looking at what is happening in Israel right now, the Iron Dome, we were told nobody can bypass that. We were told it is invincible, indestructible, very powerful. And now look at what is happening to Israel. I believe the West should come to an understanding that they are not as powerful as they thought. They could go into the third world countries and project their power and do whatever they want to do. But when it comes to similar nations such as Russia, India, China, and right now Iran, no, they can't just go into their backyard and do whatever they want. Lest I digress, let me go back to Zelensky. I have also come to understand that Zelensky is not in control. I knew this from the onset, but I have come to understand that Zelensky wants the war to continue. Do you know why? Let me tell you why. As soon as the Russia-Ukraine war stops, Zelensky becomes the target of his people. Whilst the war is going on, they get diverted, attention get diverted onto the war. But as soon as the war stops, Zelensky now becomes a target. As a matter of fact, he is not even popular in Ukraine anymore. Now let us come to NATO. Why does NATO want this war to continue? This war, first of all, must continue because NATO has loaned Ukraine over, NATO and America, have loaned Ukraine over $200 billion or less in equipment and in monetary forms. And Ukraine is rich in resources. NATO and America want Ukraine to pay them back with their resources. And if the war ends on the terms of Russia, they may not get their resources, which means they will lose all the money they spent and all the weapons they sent to Ukraine. Far from that, do you remember NATO seized almost about 400 billion of Russia assets? And they are saying that they use that money to pre-finance the war. So if the war ends on Russian terms, NATO and America will not just lose the $200 billion. They will have to pay Russia their $400 billion. As a matter of fact, that money already belongs to Russia. It is theirs. And NATO and America seized that money. So you see, they will lose weapons. They will not get their resources, which they want from Ukraine, which they want to extract from Ukraine. And then they will also have to pay Russia an amount of $400 billion. So you see, and looking at the economic crisis in Europe right now, I don't think the European Union has that money. And even if they have it, if they pay it out, they will suffer tremendously. Zelensky, I believe at the end of everything, it is either the Zelensky will either die or will be arrested. I strongly believe that. I really, really believe that. Let me know your thoughts on what I've just said. Here's Kofi Info, and we'll meet on the next video. Bye-bye.